You're listening to the AFTERBUZZ TV Network, now the largest new media platform on the web, and your #1 source for after-show entertainment.
Very good, Keith Johnson.
From the AFTERBUZZ Studios in Los Angeles, California, presented by Maria Menounos and streaming live thanks to Akamai Technologies, this is AFTERBUZZ TV's Orphan Black After Show. We'll break down tonight's episode and get you all the latest news and gossip. And now, another post-game wrap-up show for your favorite TV show. It's AFTERBUZZ TV's Orphan Black After Show.
We're all doing the dance today, except for Will. Will's just pointing.
I'm just pointing at the dancers.
Will's just pointing.
Will's so reserved.
I don't dance.
That's okay, man.
You Clone Club dance.
You don't have to be a dancer to do the Clone Club dance. Well, hello, Clone Club.
Clearly.
Yeah.
Clearly.
All right, we're off the rails already. Hello and welcome, Clone Club, to another episode of Orphan Black on AFTERBUZZ. I'm your host, Nando Velasquez, and the man who's pointing, I'm just going to call him out right now, is Will Link, and he's still pointing.
That's
he's pointing right at me
right
now. He's just pointing with the Seinfeld shirt. And next to him, of course, is Anna Koppel.
Hello.
Sounding very beautiful.
I'm sick, sorry guys.
You sound fine. Don't bring it to their attention.
Do you only think she sounds beautiful when she's sick now?
No, I think she sounds beautiful usually, but I'm giving her a pep talk. She's thinking she sounds sick. She sounds beautiful. All right. There you go.
Lozenges in my mouth.
And next to me is Mr. Matt Lieberman.
Hello.
Hello.
So glad to be here talking about Orphan Black.
Talking about Orphan Black and dancing.
Must be Monday.
It must be Monday at 6 p.m. Pacific time because we're talking about Orphan Black. And we are in Season 2, Episode 8. Let me see if I can say this correctly.
Get it, girl.
Variable and full of perturbation.
Yeah.
Yes. Is that right? Am I correct?
Sounds right to me.
Awesome. Cool. I know if I'm not right, someone will comment on YouTube. So I'm glad. I'm glad to know I got it right. So, big shocker, huge shocker, as we see a new clone. Or trans clone, as is mentioned. So we should just talk about this first, because I think this was a very, I mean, how could you not talk about this? You know, Tony, or who used to be Antoinette.
But it's Tony now.
Tony now.
Transgendered man.
Transgendered man. And a criminal.
Yes.
At least we first see Tony. I knew automatically when I saw the hood on that figure.
It was Tatiana.
It was Tatiana. I was like, what the hell's going on here?
Clearly, being a clone forces you down a life of crime because Sarah, even Allison's let someone die. Clearly, being a clone sends you down a path of crime.
It's this batch, man. This batch is full of problems. Okay, Sarah and Helena should never have been able to conceive. We find out later.
Oh boy,
they have violent tendencies. It's just in the genes. It's in the blood. But yeah, Tony's this street tough, getting wrapped up in all the bad stuff.
In Cincinnati.
Yeah.
He comes all the way up to Toronto to see Beth Childs.
Yeah.
Because of her partner Sammy, who has a message.
His partner.
I'm sorry, his partner.
He is
Excuse
a man
me.
now.
Yes, he is a man.
Yeah.
I believe Art made the same mistake once in the episode, so you're allowed
it's
one.
It's a little confusing. You're so used to seeing Tatiana as a woman, and this male still has very feminine qualities. Obviously, he's still taking testosterone, go for it.
When Felix made the comment that fluidity doesn't scare him, and as I understand gender fluidity, there's a lot more flexibility between the genders, and it might even change day to day. So I'm not really sure what to refer to Tony as at this juncture.
Okay. Well, I feel like based on the name change and based on the way that he's styling his beard, that at present he's identifying as male.
And taking testosterone and everything, and I totally agree, but fluidity was thrown in for a reason.
Okay.
So...
But it's still confusing considering we also got to see, considering Jordan and Tatiana have been, working together for 2 seasons, mainly as brother-sister, we got to see a kiss between the two actors.
Can we talk about this kiss?
Yeah, let's.
Do we need to talk about the stuff that happened before first?
My roommate, who was walking in and not watching, not a big Orphan Black fan, he's getting into it, but he's not caught up, was just like, that's all sorts of wrong right there.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't even think he knew Felix's sexual preference, so I was like, oh, you don't know the half of it. It's confusing as all hell.
They kind of liked it.
Yeah, that was maybe the most.
Right?
Well, we talked about last season when we did our breakdown of last season. We talked about the moment where Felix saw Sarah with Paul, and he made that so maybe there is a little Felix.
Well, there's a lot of emotional tension there because she's put him through a lot of crap over the years, and when you have that much emotion, that much feeling kind of backed up. And then it's now you're faced with this man who is like that sister who drives you crazy in every way, except he is, your sexual preference and not related to you, and getting into your crap. And then he goes in for the kiss. I feel like there's a moment where he's not entirely sure what to do about it.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that it wasn't necessarily something that he wanted to do, but I have to imagine it's going to haunt him for a long time, and not necessarily just because it's messed up.
But ultimately, they did kiss, and he obviously liked it. And can I just say, yuck? Because I don't care that they're not related. If I found my brother's doppelganger and we're not related, I am not making out with him because that is weird and it's creepy and it's gross.
What if it was your sister's? What if it was your sister's doppelganger who looked like a man, though?
And that you were never actually related to. You were just raised together.
Just raised together.
It doesn't matter. No,
it's still odd.
Yeah.
Well, I have a stepbrother. I would never. We weren't raised together. I would never, because that makes Thanksgiving weird.
Right?
Yeah. This is weird.
I don't think Tony's invited Thanksgiving.
Yeah, I don't think there's a clone club.
Plus, they're in Canada.
I'm just saying. You guys, can we just agree that it's weird? It's weird.
Oh, it's weird. No,
pretty weird and crazy, perverse, but also incredibly awesome. We're like, oh yeah, Orphan Black's going there.
Oh, I want it to happen again. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, calling it next season.
It's so weird. Please do it again.
Next season.
But there's something wrong with me.
There's dicks touching.
Sword fight.
Whoa, sword fighting.
Yeah.
If I may say a few things about Tony real quick.
Three
things I really liked about
Say
Tony.
everything.
Say everything you like.
One, I love that, like we're talking about, it's, Felix has been in situations where he's made people feel a little maybe uncomfortable. So I love about that kiss or the introduction of Tony, somebody who could take Felix just enough out of his comfort zone. I also, once again, I love seeing Tatiana playing a new character, somebody else, which again I think she does a terrific job of. And I also think, I think it's really interesting and really good and somewhat important that they introduce a trans male character. However, I have an issue with Tony that has nothing to do with gender, has nothing to do with. I don't know how relevant, from a storytelling standpoint, this introduction of this character was, and I don't know if he gave us any information that was so big that it couldn't have come out in some other way.
You're talking about the Paul reveal?
Yeah, that's the only reason Tony, from a story standpoint, exists in this episode, and it was kind of like a non-reveal reveal.
I disagree. I disagree with that, and that's because it's showing that there's a male clone. It's just another way that the genetics just got messed up somehow. So it's just another example of that.
But it was a female clone that transitioned.
Oh, you're right. You're right.
It wasn't a male clone.
My bad.
It was a female clone.
That's my mistake.
I agree.
Transgendered.
It does bring up a nature nurture
How did I forget that in 2 seconds?
Right.
Yeah, go ahead. I was going to say, I do find it, first of all, I do find it interesting that also, I want to bring this up, that Pride Parade was yesterday, Pride Day was yesterday for a lot of people, and there was a lot of talk about transgender, in the news too. So I find it really convenient and topical that this actually came out the day after, or the weekend of.
Right, and
Pride weekend.
one of the transgendered actress on Orange is the New Black was the face of trans on Time Magazine just a few weeks ago.
Well, I see, in that standpoint, I think it's great.
Oh yeah, no. From that standpoint, I'm really proud that the show went there, and it raised a lot of interesting questions again about nature versus nurture, and it planted this seed for this perverse relationship subplot that's totally going to come back next season. But as episode 8 of a 10-episode season of Orphan Black, I agree with Will that maybe it wasn't the best use of our time when there's still so much plot that we have to unpack.
Here's what I think. Besides the fact that I think they might have planned this topically, you know, because of Pride Weekend, I also feel that it just reminds us.
And also was the Tonys last night.
And well, if Tony started, the Tonys and Tony. I was gonna say if Tony started tap dancing, then I'd say, wow, it's really topical. But I would say that it still reminds us that there are more clones out there that we have no idea about. This one just sprung up out of nowhere. And I have a theory that I want to save for a little bit later for our discussion on some other stuff about Tony as well. But what I thought was really interesting is I think Tony's not even coming back. Tony's leaving. It's just a one-off for Tony. So it's just almost a reminder that there are other clones out there. This one had a little bit of information on Paul, a little flirting around, a little fun stuff with Felix. You know, probably good for the two actors to actually change it up a little bit. And then now Tony's gone.
But like Matt said, this is episode 8. And here's the thing, and I've said this numerous times here. What I love about the show is it felt like this season, it hit the ground running. Every episode has had forward momentum. This was the first episode of maybe the series where I felt like it was kind of spinning its wheels a bit, kind of just setting us up for the last 2 episodes more than being an exciting episode in and to itself.
The stakes weren't high in every story. Like the Cosima storyline, the stakes are high.
Yeah.
You know, the stakes are only kind of high in the Ethan Duncan transfer story, and just that Kira is still wanted. But there was no real danger this week.
I feel like I like the Tony character for the reasons I said. I wonder if there was a better way to introduce the character, or at least give the character a little bit more than this vague Paul thing, because everything about Paul is already so vague. It just gave us a little bit more vague information.
And Paul's completely AWOL to boot. I mean, they even said Paul's AWOL, and yet there's some information about somebody who's not around.
At least, though, him being AWOL was a plot point of the show, and it wasn't just an episode that Paul wasn't in.
Right. That's fair. But you know what? Like, I like seeing Art and Felix working together.
Yes,
I like seeing how freaked out Art was. Which is delightful, and also glad that Beth's not secretly alive, because that wouldn't make any sense.
You know what? Maybe another reason why I'm a little with this episode is because I really all week all I kept hearing is you have to watch this episode live. You have to watch it live. Every tweet you have to watch it. You and me were talking about this, and I stayed in and watched it live. And maybe I let the hype get to me a bit much.
I think you were waiting for a big reveal.
But I didn't. I'm glad it wasn't that Beth thing, because if that had been that, I would have.
Sorry, Anna. I know you want Beth to be alive.
I kind of want to see Beth alive too. I want to have a feasible explanation as to why she's alive too.
Well, that's why I don't want Beth alive, because there would be no feasible explanation. It would be the ultimate like soap opera moment of like, oh, they're not really dead. You know, it wouldn't play.
I guess it's just that Beth seems like such an interesting character, and unfortunately we only got to know her through her death, that I wish I could see a little bit more of her. But I do agree. I mean, if she comes back in some big soap opera way, I'm gonna call shenanigans.
Well, isn't it all kind of a big soap opera way? Because like, isn't the soap opera thing like it was my twin?
The evil twin.
Yeah. So
there's a little bit of that. Yes, that's true. I didn't think of it that way. That's true.
Did anyone think that when I know I'm skipping ahead and I don't want to derail it? Did anyone think that when Cosima hit the floor at the end and Kira woke up, she was going to say Cosima's dead? Or like something like that, have that weird prescient, like I feel everything thing?
No, but honestly, I think that's great that you thought that, because that would, if they had done that, I would have totally bought into it.
Right?
I would have totally bought into it.
You're totally skipping ahead now.
Oh, sorry. But
I was like, that was a non sequitur right there.
Yeah.
Well, another thing, getting back to a trans character, I remember, I'm not surprised that they did this, because I remember watching at Comic-Con last year, I watched like some of the videos, the interviews, and one of the audience members asked Tatiana, like, oh, would you guys ever consider doing like a trans clone? And before like the word clone had finished coming out of the girl's mouth, Tatiana was like, yes, I would love to do that. I think that would be great. And then I read interviews afterwards that they had been doing makeup tests and playing with this idea last season.
Between the commercial break, they had an inside look, and they talked about the makeup tests for Tony.
Yeah, so they were. This was something they'd been working on for. And like I said, as an actress, I think she pulled it off. I almost think that if you're going to introduce Tony, give him a little bit more.
Well, I was going to say, do you guys think Tatiana pulled it off? because I had trouble in the beginning actually still getting used to seeing Tony, because it was just confusing for me. But toward the end of it, I finally got used to it. Like when Tony left, I really got to see Tatiana playing a male side, you know, the more masculine side of Tony.
I think they should have done thicker eyebrows. I would have bought into it more.
Really?
Yeah.
I bought into what she was giving me.
Yeah.
I did have some makeup issues with it,
Oh
though.
yeah, the little goatee looked like Tony stuck it on every morning before he went to work or before he went to crime or whatever. But I don't know. At the beginning, when I thought this is just a straight up man that she's playing, I was like, this is goofy and dumb. When I found out that, you know, that he was trans, it made more sense, and I was able to let go of my reservations vis-a-vis makeup a little bit more. Because it is a woman who's been taking testosterone, we don't know for how long, long enough that he's developed a beard, but it's not going to make all the changes in the world. It's still going to retain feminine features.
Yeah, as far as we know, yeah, absolutely.
Another thing, Tony's partner,
Sammy. Yeah, Sam.
So Sammy was Tony's monitor then. So Tony is being monitored.
Or was.
Or was.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it draws the question, though, why wasn't Tony brought up earlier? Why doesn't Dyad brought this person up?
Hold on. Did we confirm that Sammy was a monitor, or did Felix just say, I smell monitor all over it?
He said that, but also the fact that he knew Paul, I don't know. I mean,
fact
that would
that he
be
knew
too big
Paul-
a coincidence.
Too big of a coincidence.
Oh, and he also knew Beth Childs.
Right,
Yeah.
but that
Yeah.
begs the question, because obviously Dyad wouldn't hunt down Paul. So who are these suits who went and killed Sammy? It definitely was not Dyad, because they would have tried to scoop up Tony. And also, why would they be coming after a monitor in their own employ? I'm wondering, the thing in Paul's past that we still haven't talked about is
Afghanistan.
right. But who is in Afghanistan? Is it another corporate interest that's trying to steal Dyad's research, perhaps?
Well, I would have to admit that perhaps Paul being in AWOL right now has something to do with those suits going after Sammy and Tony at that moment.
Well, I'm assuming Sammy didn't play ball. Sammy went off the reservation with Tony, didn't want to play the Dyad game anymore. If it is Dyad, in fact, who were the ones who...
In those expensive fancy suits who are chasing after him or shooting them?
Again, I have thoughts, but I'll save them for predictions.
Okay, fair enough. All right. Let's move on. But before we do, if you guys are listening to us on iTunes, we're back on iTunes. I believe everything's hunky-dory.
Oh, fantastic.
Good.
Fantastic. And please subscribe. Please rate us. You know, we'd love to see ratings. We'd love to get feedback. You can also write to us on YouTube when we post this every single week if you're not watching us live on AfterBuzzTV.com. Thank you to those of you who have been posting, like Umar Soares, Jeannie M, PRC Braz, Lambda 66, and Tiffany F, Emma Frost 45, Susan Winston, Miss Lean, Alex Echo, Nbar 11, and PMI. Oh boy, HICHAEIT. I don't know. PMI.
What?
I don't know.
Michael T.
P. Michael T. There we go. P. Michael T. If there was a capital in there, I would have gotten it. Like Sad Tech Groupie wrote capitals. I could read that one. Brian NL04. There's a lot of them.
A lot of
the
great
artist formerly known as My Call C205. I've seen that one before. AC Vartherd. And SG Flying High 1. Thank you very much, all you people.
Yeah, and another way you can support AfterBuzz is our founder, Maria Menounos, has a brand new book out called The Every Girl's Guide to Diet and Fitness.
Which I'm holding up.
Yes, it's now available in Amazon and bookstores everywhere. It's filled with great recipes and workouts. Maria tells you how she lost 40 pounds and kept it off. Any support of Maria obviously comes back and supports us. So please help keep the lights on here at AfterBuzz and help yourself lose some weight.
Lots of celebrity interviews.
Yeah.
Lots of celebrity interviews. Really big book. It just came out on Amazon last week, and you could find it also at finer bookstores everywhere. So there we go. And it's awesome. So let's move on. Let's talk a little bit about Allison and Donnie, because I think, of course, Donnie always bringing the comedy into it, and Allison. And I just loved seeing Donnie pretty much just curled up in a fetal position in bed with a drinking problem. I mean, it's like
how many of those little bottles did he have?
Those
He had
little
at least
airline
15,
bottles.
man.
Well, she hides them around the house.
she marks them in the tub in a bin called buttons or something like that. It said, and all sorts of stuff. It was
Why would you need buttons in the tub?
that's what I was wondering.
Well,
That's so weird.
a tub of buttons.
A tub.
She's not bathing with buttons.
Okay.
Oh, see, but no, I thought the same thing that Matt did.
She's Allison's very craft.
She's
She has a craft
crafting
room.
while she's in a tub.
God.
So, first of all, Christian Brune was live tweeting the show,
Yes.
and a lot of fun stuff there. And what did I have to say about that? Go finish what you were saying.
Did he tweet something interesting? Is that what
Anything
you're
about
A
the
ton of
tiny
interesting
whiteys?
things.
He
a ton
only
of,
tweets interesting things.
Yeah.
Oh yes, he was on our show. He was very interesting on our show as well.
Yeah.
So
Well, you want to know what I loved about the scenes with them is that a dual confession of murder is probably the sweetest, most romantic moment these
they've
two
had.
characters have
Oh,
had.
yeah.
It was lovely.
But you know what? That brought them back together.
Oh,
Because it was like a
100%.
failed marriage, and it was going to be over. But in that moment, it was like they're like,
Yeah.
Well,
this
so-
binds us.
That's why I always say, if you're having trouble in your relationship, go out and kill someone,
Yeah.
and you can bond over
well,
that.
it just turns
No.
out how similar they are.
Right. Well, her type A pragmatic streak came out in a big way, since she has, you know, that kind of that moral relativism of like, I don't really care much that this guy is dead or that you killed him. I'm guilty of murder too, and this guy was a dick to me. So yeah, I'm gonna take care of this car. I'm gonna get a new wrap. We're gonna make this all happen, and this is gonna be the strongest marriage on the show. I mean, it's still the only marriage on the show, but it's gonna be a very, very strong one. Just because now they're in sync. That's the problem with couples when they don't communicate. Okay, when they're not communicating emotionally, when they're holding things back, then they're not meeting in the middle.
They
And for-
certainly are on the same page, and they've given their biggest confession to each other. So you would assume that there's going to be a lot more trust in this marriage,
Yeah, they
and they'll be
talked
very
all night.
honest to each other.
Well, in the last two episodes, yeah, all the cards have been put out on the table. The clone thing, the murder thing, everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and you know, it's funny because I was thinking when I didn't bring it on the show, but when Donnie shot Leaky, it was just pretty obvious. Like, wow, they both shared an accidental death in common, and here they are now, Bond. And it's just so
Well, this
funny
is-
to see Donnie revert to the same tactics that Allison did when Ainsley died. With drinking.
It's the first time that they've both been completely honest to each other in their entire marriage, and the first time that you know, they've been really in sync since Allison found out she was a clone. You know, she's been kind of off the rails since then, and then, you know, Donnie's reveal, finding that out last week. So I'm really, really excited to see how they repair this relationship. Now, I'm worried about the kids, because at this point, they've seen some stuff.
Poor kids.
Yeah.
Poor kids walking in on that scene.
Oh my God. How shameful he must have felt in the tidy whities in the harsh light of day with all the bottles, and his kids are seeing it.
Daddy smells like mommy used to.
Yeah.
The kids are with Allison's mother. They said they're always with the mother. Oh, I hope we see this character at some
Right?
point, because
Yeah.
I do want to know a little bit more about how
I
Allison was
feel like
raised.
there's going to be an interesting reveal when we finally do get to see the mother.
I hope it's a fun bit of stunt casting. I mean, this show, we could use a little more.
It should be someone like a Fran Drescher type or something.
Oh my God, no. What if it's the new head exec at Dyad? What if I know that's like a huge leap, but what if it's Michelle Forbes?
If it's Marion Bowles?
Yeah, because she's type A. She's anyway.
That would be weird, but I would think that she would know what her mom does for a living.
Yeah,
I would
that
think
would-
Allison.
That wouldn't work,
Especially
but
if
it's
Allison's-
like kind of great at the
I
same
don't know.
time.
Especially
I
with-
just knew my dad did stocks for the first 15 years of my life. I didn't know where or what or how. I just knew he did stocks.
I don't know. This woman is the head of a multi-million dollar corporation. I would think that Allison would be a little bit more, want the finer things in life instead of just arts and crafting,
And she doesn't
multicolored
have,
mittens and such.
head of a multi-million. She doesn't have time to watch Allison and Donnie's kids.
Yeah, I would think that
True.
too.
All right,
Get the
fine.
butler to do it. Yeah, totally.
Fine.
Good idea though. But I think it's going to be someone just like a comedian
Hey,
of some
look,
sort.
that's as viable as an idea as Beth being alive.
I would love
so.
to see. I would love to see like Fran Drescher or maybe like an Ellen DeGeneres. Someone that can play someone maybe neurotic or very just match Allison's type really well. I'd love to see. That would be a great question for Tatiana. Actually, who would she want to act as Allison's mom if we ever got to see that.
Oh yeah,
that would be really, really interesting. I think.
Who apparently everybody hates.
Apparently, and that's why she's not on screen yet. Apparently. So, well, anyway, so we also got to see that fun scene where Donnie is showing off what he did to Leaky in the trunk of the car, and we get to see Allison in full Allison mode, worried about the lining of the car and the fact that the body was not, insulated well or well kept.
Because he crapped himself.
He crapped himself, totally. Very disgusting.
He used one of Allison's guns.
Oh yeah,
and kept it and brought it back
and put it in there. Oh boy, she freaked out at that. That's pretty much that might come back to haunt them. Who knows?
Yeah. So it'll be the strongest marriage ever if they are able to escape this murder rap, which is it seems like they are just screwed on.
Well, it's a strong marriage, but don't forget. Allison's still incredibly neurotic and OCD, and yet Donnie still doesn't seem to have a very active sex life with her because she's also very cold toward him.
Well, they didn't have much time with the murders and the rehab, to be fair to their marriage.
Even before the murders and the rehab, they didn't seem to have a great sex life.
By season's end, I'm calling it. Just back, I think they're back between the sheets. The fire's going to come back. Burying this body and getting rid of the gun is going to reignite their sex life.
That's going to turn her on.
I kind of hope so.
I think so.
All right.
You also still have DeAngelis sniffing around.
That's
and now
true.
that's not good to have when you have a dead body in your home.
Yeah, with Victor Dick. So it's going to be, that'll definitely be interesting to see. We saw a little clip of Victor Dick in the house as it is. So for next week. So we'll probably see maybe we'll see DeAngelis in that whole mess as well. So since she seems to be pulling Vic's strings in order for him to get out of whatever rap he's got.
And I just want to say really quickly, I was harsh on his looks last week. That little clip, even just that little clip from next week. Michael Mando is a handsome man.
He is a handsome man.
I don't know how I didn't notice it earlier.
He is a handsome man.
He's been cast in Better Call Saul.
Oh, fantastic.
Yes, he's going to be on that.
Oh,
He's gonna be on that. That's going to be awesome.
That's awesome.
So good for him.
Absolutely.
Great.
So since we talked about Leaky dying and Donnie accidentally killing him, let's talk about what's going on with Dyad right now. So first of all, Rachel's pretty much hanging out over in Leaky's desk, which surprised the hell out of Delphine, who obviously considered Leaky a confidant to her, and she got a lot of inside information from Leaky. So
Delphine had the same attitude about Leaky that I did, that he was the lesser of two evils.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think that we all kind of felt that way. That Leaky seemed to be the lesser of two evils, even after Ethan admitted that that reveal about Leaky and
being responsible for the fire.
Yeah, it still seemed like Rachel still was the worst of the two.
Well, it's just because she's a little emotionally unstable. As we see later
on in the episode. Yeah.
But even more than that is Miriam, who seems to be utterly cold-hearted, whereas Leaky was a scientist who had grown to love these clones on a level. They were the lives he'd been taking care of for his entire career.
Let's get this straight. Just a sidebar. It's Marion or Miriam, because someone commented on that.
I think it's Marion, right?
Marion.
You had it right.
Marion.
It's Marion. I had subtitles on last week, and actually the subtitles said Miriam when they said Marion, so I've gotten confused between the two. But I believe it's Marion, and one of our YouTube listeners was commenting on that. So Marion Bowles.
Marion.
Yes, because I'm sure we're going to see some more of her very, very soon.
Yes.
But yes, absolutely, I totally agree with you on that. As far as
Delphine, when we first met her, she was on Leaky's arm. Like before they even were able to get under Cosima's skin, they were obviously very close. Maybe potentially more than just work partners. We don't know. I just remember that one scene where he came back to a hotel room and she was there. She came back to his hotel room or something from the first season.
Well, there always seemed to be some god worship with Leaky. In season 1, when we saw the club, there seemed to be a lot of people, and of course Delphine, the way she talked about Leaky in the very beginning. So there definitely seemed to be some type of adulation, holding Leaky up to a pedestal, which we didn't really get to see much of this season.
Yeah, but I mean, there was a whole cult of people who modified their bodies
based on his teaching,
based on a joke he had made. He said about having one gray eye and one, So
I find that I wonder if we're going to see that in any kind of capacity again, because after all, we haven't seen that club. We haven't seen neo-Lucianists.
Yeah, not a lot of neo-Lucianists this season.
I wonder if there's still a strong neo-Lucianist faction somewhere within Dyad that if we don't explore this season. Maybe we'll explore more next season.
But it's yeah. Go ahead.
Now that he's dead, it's going to be even stronger. I think that's what happens.
Well, you see who's going to fill that void.
You think he'll be canonized in that movement?
I do.
Okay, I think that's a strong prediction.
Interesting. Well, first of all, so Delphine is now interim director, I suppose. That was mentioned. Was that mentioned in the show? Or in the
no, that's for next week.
That's for next week. So that looks like what's coming too. But more importantly, because there's a void for somebody, a big, smart scientist type who knows about the sequences and knows this, Rachel's reaching out for Ethan to come in. So Ethan is coming in, and I gotta admit, I mean, Ethan seemed like a very, very polite, nice, little kooky guy, hoarding last week. But seeing him there in Dyad, and I think even Mrs. S and Sarah had a little reservation about him. I don't know if I should trust him. What do you guys think?
Well, he's got information on those discs, but it seems he's got even more hidden in that copy of The Island of Dr. Moreau.
Yeah.
Yes.
And he left it specifically for Kira to read. He's got a fascination with Kira. He was asking early on, how old is she? Not just because she was the same age as Rachel was when she was taken away, but I think because he's tracking her development. She is a variable that he did not foresee. She was a mistake.
Because that was I think the biggest bit of information given in this whole episode.
Right.
Sarah, yeah, and like you said earlier, Sarah and Helena, they were the mistakes in the thing. Rachel, of course,
they were the failures, not even mistakes. They were the failures.
Yeah.
The rest were the successes.
And you know what? I hadn't thought about it until he said it, but yeah, obviously you wouldn't want your experiments to be able to necessarily reproduce.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense because exactly, you want to keep them in a safe environment where you have control over everying they do. The fact that Sarah and Helena can give birth.
Yeah. I mean, it's perverse to do that to living creatures who are sentient, who have intelligence and feelings, and obviously Rachel is very upset that she can't have a child.
Oh boy!
And I'm wondering, where do you guys think, in terms of her character, do you think that this obsession with having a kid comes from? Because to me, potentially, she's got all these tapes from when she was a child of her parents being so kind to her, and then she was ripped away from them. She seems to be at peace with it, or at least that's what she projects. But that was the happiest time of her life, I think, was with her parents.
She's not at peace with it, because otherwise she wouldn't rewatch the tapes over and over again. I think maybe she wants to be able to somehow give that again or capture that moment again, and not being able to have kids, she'll never be able to have that.
Well, I think with her it's also, first of all, look, if she was a mother, what kind of mother would she be? This is a woman who's in charge, so she thinks at least. She has a high position for a major company. You know, she probably doesn't have time to raise a kid to have those kinds of moments that she's experiencing on the tape. But I think for her, it's more of, this is her body. She wants to have the choice whether or not she can have a kid or not. And here she is being told that they successfully kept her in a box, that she can't reproduce, that she can't do these things if she wants to do them. If she wants to get away from this life and reproduce and be a mom, she can't.
And that, you're right. And that actually fits into one of my favorite themes of this show about women's bodies, and Cosima's always talking about she's her own science, and what's going on with Helena's storyline with them taking her babies, and they're going to put her babies in her. Like, it's all has to do with these ideas about a woman's right to her body.
And I mean, she possibly could be a decent mom. She'd probably just have a lot of helpers while she's running a company.
Motherhood
but she
might
wants to
soften her.
It might even soften her,
for all we know, one of the reasons she's so hardened is because of her inability to, maybe she's become so bitter about this.
Well, here's the other interesting thing I thought about this theory when Ethan said about Sarah and Helena being the failures and everyone else being the successes. We've seen these other clones. We've seen Cosima, who is homosexual. We've seen now Tony, who's a transgender. We see all these, and Allison doesn't really have the greatest sex life, and Rachel, well, we've seen Rachel kind of getting it on with Paul, but all these people who seem to have these very different sexual orientations and preferences, and I wonder if that's also associated with the fact that their programming, the sequences, the fact that they can't give birth, that maybe there's something else there that kind of has them almost lost in a way, because they can't give birth. They can't reproduce.
I want to defend Allison's sex life for a second here, because the second time it's come up. Because I don't think Allison's is like... I don't want to put any of this on Allison, because we see Allison, we saw her last season having sex in the van. I mean, she's a sexual being.
She can be.
Donnie, her husband has been spying on her.
Yeah, she's been cold towards him because
there's a legitimate reason they have a bad sex life, and it's on him.
She's been cold before this, though. She's been cold with him before this. I think when we first walk in and we see Allison, she's always been this way.
Well, she just found out she was a clone.
It's a big deal.
It's a big thing. If you find out
That
you're a
hasn't
clone,
stopped Sarah from having Kitchen Island sex, you know?
Well, but that was for her survival.
Yeah.
Okay, that was for her survival.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'd like to see Allison have sex for her survival then. Let's see what happens then. How about that? That sounded weird.
That sounded really weird.
All right,
all sorts of weird.
Back to Ethan for a minute. He said a couple of things that seemed really black and white to me. One of the things was they asked, so can you fix the genetic sequence? Can you really help Cosima? And he said yes, but it's immodest to boast. And then the other thing he was referring to the book, The Island Dr. Moreau. He said something about being forgiven for hate, but not for irresponsibility.
Yeah.
And
that was a big line.
he asked Rachel, you know, to forgive him. And she said something, because that would be unforgivable. And so it just seemed like there was really like a line drawn in the sand. And I just wanted to bring that up as a part of his personality.
I think that's a great line that you brought up about irresponsibility, because it also makes me feel that everything Ethan is doing is intentional because he's being responsible. He doesn't want to be irresponsible. So it makes me think that you know, even though he kind of looks a little kooky and doting, and we saw the hoarding in the last week, and all of a sudden he pulls the discs just like that, just pulls them out like he knows exactly where they are.
Well, here's the thing, right? He's had a quarter of a century to figure out what his next move would be when he finally resurfaced. So I have to imagine that he is acting deliberately, that he is to a degree putting on this persona of kookiness and of spaciness. He has a larger agenda, and we have just basically delivered him into the lion's den.
And Leaky may have been the lesser of two evils, but who's to say Ethan is not the worst between Rachel and Ethan? Once he finally gets himself locked into Dyad and everything that is accessible to him there.
Because of the Cosima situation, it felt like Sarah had no choice but to hand him over there. But do we think then that was a bad move? Because I'll tell you what, Mrs. S questioned it at first, and there was a moment, again, moments that I think something's going to happen, where he's sitting there, and I thought Mrs. S was just going to shoot him and kill him and take him out of the equation. I really, because twice we've heard the line.
But he's a bargaining chip.
But twice we've heard the line, I'll put a bullet in his head, and then they're about to hand him over. And I swear to God, there was a second where I thought Mrs. S was just going to take him out of the equation.
Well, maybe there'll be some poetic justice in like 2 or 3 seasons where she does put a bullet in his head. And she's like, I always told you I was going to do this. And he's like, you're right. Blam, done.
I could see that happening.
So do we think it was, I mean, obviously I don't want anything horrible to happen to Cosima, but do we think it was a good move that they used
I think it's
him
the
as the
only.
bargainer?
I think it's the only move. Well, it's not the only move they can make, but it was the best move they can make at the time right now. I mean, we also see some hemming and hawing about Kira, just whether or not they should bring her in, and obviously, you know, Scott mentioned that the tooth is not the best way to get, you know, to actually help Cosima. They need bone marrow.
Yeah.
From the subject, meaning Kira, which is teased about next week. It sounds like the dilemma gets more relevant next week because of what happens to Cosima at the end of this episode.
And I don't know much about bone marrow transplants or operations or things like that, but it's very painful. Yeah, right? It's very, that's what I've always heard.
I've heard it's painful.
So, I mean,
but if anyone can do it, Kira might be able to, because Kira seems to be the kind. I mean, look what she did last week. She pulled her own tooth out. She said it was wiggled.
She got hit by a car. I mean, she'll recover fast from this, but at the same time, as a mother, I can't imagine Sarah is gonna want this.
No, I can agree with that. Sarah's definitely not gonna want.
Also, part of me thinks that she recovers so fast that if they put a needle into her bone to try to withdraw the bone marrow, the bone would just seal up around it and just chop off the bottom part of that needle or something.
You think so?
I think that we've only seen the barest glimpse of her potential.
Okay. Well, probably. You're right.
Well, not least to say, I mean, her looking at that book of the Isle of Dr. Moreau at the very end.
How much of that do you think she's absorbing?
That's what I was wondering.
She had this big-ass smile on her face, like she understood it. That was so weird.
Yeah, that was like one of my predictions, that she's going to be able to figure out the sequence, like she's going to be the key, too.
Oh, my God. Oh, my goodness.
That's crazy. I mean, like, I thought the smile was more like, oh, he left me a secret message, how fun. I'm special. I got all this secret special stuff.
Well, yeah, it's the sequence for the clones. Yeah.
But yeah, I think
she's secret special. She starts coloring in.
Right. And didn't Ethan say again, potentially another lie? He said that his wife was the science. Yeah. That he, really he more watched and she did all the work, and that apparently appears to be completely disingenuous.
Yeah.
Completely disingenuous.
Well, modesty. What do you say about modesty?
It's true.
Yeah, it's modest to boast.
Yeah, too modest to boast. But he definitely is not showing all of his cards.
Yes.
Because he's hoarding them somewhere in that room.
Because he stuck them all in that book.
In that book, exactly.
I quickly want to say before we move on that
yes.
I trust Rachel more now that she's so emotional.
Because it humanizes her?
Yes.
She is very emotional. I just think that makes her a little bit more unstable. But I do like, last week when we saw the clip of Rachel tossing about her office, I thought it was more in relation to Leaky dying. But it was kind of nice to see it was because of the revelation that she can't give kids because that was Ethan's intention. That was Dyad's intention to have clones that could not reproduce.
Well, she has no idea yet that Leaky is dead. She let him walk away. No, she let him walk away with his life. Marion told her to kill him, and she let him walk away and try to hide. So she has no idea that Leaky's even dead. She assumes that he wandered away to try to live a normal life.
That is true. So who's to say what her reaction will be when she finds out Leaky died? Because obviously there was a little bit of a, a memory of her past with Leaky, the man who raised her when her parents weren't there.
But I still feel like she's said her goodbye to Leaky. Sure. Like that is in her head. He might as well be dead. Like he's gone. That's true
because she gave him a head start and said, if they find you, they're going to kill you.
So. I don't think she'll be shocked to find out he's dead if she does ever even find out that he's dead and not just gone.
Can we talk about Cosima and the one of the biggest moments that I don't want to gloss over is that she and Delphine said that they loved each other, which I doubted this relationship at the beginning. I thought that Delphine was playing Cosima, that she didn't even want to be with a woman, that she wasn't attracted to her. When she cried after the first time, I'm like, oh man, she's just putting this on. And to see their relationship evolve in this very real, very emotional way is really gratifying as a viewer.
Yeah. And I was the opposite. Delphine was the one person that I did trust going into this, and I'm glad that seems to have been rewarded because I like the Cophine relationship.
I love the line that Cosima said, "You have to love all of us. You can't just love me."
Yeah,
you have to love all of us, which I thought was a really, really great line too, and it kind of reestablishes Delphine. If you're on my side, you're also on Sarah's side. You're also on Allison's. You're on every one of our clones. You're on all of our sides, even Rachel's. Even though, Sarah's the one that has the real issue with Rachel, but even Rachel. So I thought that was really beautiful. I also loved, since we're talking about the relationship between Delphine and Cosima, I loved the fact that Cosima locked her out. Delphine out in the beginning. I love that little spat that they were still having.
Are mean.
That's true.
I thought it was kind of cute in a way, but it's really nice to see that they're kind of not only Donnie and Allison seem to be on the same page, but it looks like Delphine and Cosima are more or less on the same page, and especially now that Cosima really needs Delphine because she's doubled up on the floor, coughing up blood.
Yeah.
Pretty crazy.
Which I kind of wish hadn't been in the coming attractions. Because that was in the previews for last week. So I
forgot about it.
See, I remembered that, and I assumed that would happen earlier in the episode, but it's like the second to last scene of the episode.
I thought it would happen during the Settlers of Catan scene when she was with the gamers.
Or whatever they were playing.
It looked like, it kind of reminded me of something between Risk and Settlers of Catan.
It like meets Warhammer or something.
It was called, I have it here.
I think it was a fictional game, but if we got it, it wasn't.
Yeah, no, I read something too that John Fawcett, he's a big board game guy.
It's his favorite game.
Yeah.
Really?
It's John Fawcett's favorite game. Here we go.
Thank you for that. I didn't look that one up.
It's his buddy Julian sets up my favorite game, Rune Wars.
Rune Wars. Interesting.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to look that one up.
You guys should all come over tonight. I've got a big game of Rune Wars going in
Somehow
my
I
place.
doubt that.
I love Scott
You're
Scott just bonding with some of the other guys in the lab, and they're
Yeah.
just out there just playing on this big table. I thought that was kind of a cool scene.
That was great.
And I owe Scott an apology because I didn't trust him when he came in to die. You weren't here for that episode. I did not trust Scott, but I guess I can trust
trusted him.
Scott.
I
You
totally
did
do.
trust him.
It's just that he's kind of hung up on Cosima a little
Yeah.
bit. And I think he realizes now that the relationship between Cosima and Delphine, and also the fact that he now knows that this person, this subject that he was doing research on was all the time, it was Cosima herself, and that she's
Yeah.
the clone. So very interesting there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very interesting. I also loved paying off what Cosima said to Delphine the day that they met, that she wanted to get her real and properly baked.
But baked.
And it happened.
And
happened.
that was a really interesting scene.
Well,
as
and
well.
I love when shows are willing to make artistic departures in the way that they shoot scenes. I thought it was a really well done scene. You do so many shows do the scene where everybody does drugs, and I thought that this was one of the better drug montages and just how it was filmed. I thought it was really, really
it was
nice.
fun.
And it was sweet. They
Yeah.
were bonding together.
And it was right after her coughing fit. It was almost
Right.
like, I don't want to think about this right now. I just want to get baked, and you're going to get baked with me.
I'm so glad you brought that up because I was going to ask you now, if you're coughing up blood, do you go and start getting high?
Okay, well, they took a vaporizer, so it wasn't like smoke. The little bag is on a it's called a volcano, okay, and it vaporizes the herbs or whatever you want to use. If you want to breathe sage or whatever, you can do that.
Do a lot of sage breathing, do you, Matt?
That's why
Listen,
you bought a
if you
vaporizer, right?
go to a
For-
graveyard and you're superstitious, you may want to cleanse yourself, okay? Sage. But
I think you're just supposed to.
This is California. We're in California.
people are wacky.
Yes.
But when she started coughing at the end of the episode, I'm like, oh my god, shocking twist. Cosima's dead. Cosima is dead. And we never saw it coming. And I'm going to be so sad. And I was I'm grateful that she's still alive because I love the character. But man, that would have been just a massive punch to the face that I would have loved as a fan of television.
Well, let me ask you this: do you think they will kill Cosima, or do you think, in all honesty, because I've been wondering about this, do we think that in these next 2 episodes one of our clones is going to die?
I think we need a clone death.
I think we do.
We
And
haven't had a clone.
I think
death,
what's really good
since-
also about Tony this episode is just to remind us that if somebody dies, there could be somebody that comes in to take the place of a Cosima or an Allison.
No one could ever take the place of a Cosima.
Well,
or an
not in the same
Allison.
way, but I mean, it's still. I mean, it's not the end of a character for Tatiana. Another character could jump in the forefront.
Right.
I don't think they're going to kill Cosima. I don't think we can be as attached or interested in the storylines of Delphine and Scott and Rachel and Dyad really without Cosima. I mean, they'll still be there and whatever, but I don't think we would be as invested.
Well, if Delphine's going to be the director like Leakey was, she could have a big role to play in the whatever happens with Allison and Sarah. That would be a way to keep her involved more if Cosima died.
It's not impossible, but I just don't think we as an audience would be as invested in that storyline.
I will say this, since we're bringing up the Delphine possibly being promoted thing again, that was clued in for the promos. I don't know if she's like an acceptable person to replace Leakey. She was a student of his, but I don't know if that makes her.
She was his number 2, basically, right?
guess so.
I think it's her job to lose.
She was close enough with him, and he trusted her enough that she could come into his office whenever. It wasn't that big a deal.
I mean, who else are going to give it to? That guy who kept coming in offering people tea?
Well, I guess the best thing.
I liked his headset. It was pretty dope.
I guess the best thing about her being there is that Rachel probably thinks she can control Delphine.
Exactly.
So I suppose that would be the best thing. So I think that's pretty much everything from the episode. I just want to say one last thing about the Rune Wars. It was really cool seeing those guys all like start to silently fall in love with Cosima when she started owning them on the board.
Yeah.
Pretty girl played Rune Wars.
And if they knew she had clones, they'd be like, "Can you bring them all over? Can they play too?"
I want to see an episode where all the clones get together and play Rune
Well, we
Wars.
still have the 4 clone scene to look forward to.
That was
right.
teased in the DVD press release that we read
That's
last
right,
week.
the 4 clones.
Yeah.
That's what they get. Come over to Allison's house and they play Rune Wars, and Helena's making a mess of things.
Oh, Helena would just like throw characters all, figures all over the place.
I want to play board games with Helena.
I would love to see that. It would be awesome. So, anyway, well, let's move on. Let's go over to predictions.
And now, your AFTERBUZZ TV predictions.
So, who would like to go first? I know you have some predictions already.
Well,
You're saving up.
I don't have, but getting back to Paul, I feel like that maybe there is a new party that Paul is working for, something military-based. I mean, we know the military was involved with this clone project way back in the day. Now we find out that Sammy, Tony's monitor, was also military, saying this vague message about Paul. I feel like maybe Paul is even more of a free agent than I thought, to the point where he's working for someone else entirely, that he's a triple agent. I don't know. We will see.
Okay, fair enough.
I like that theory.
All right. Well, two things. First, Skylar Wexler, who plays Kira, so we didn't grab news and gossip, she is holding a contest to have a Skype session with her, so her details are on her Twitter, so if you want to follow her, it's Skylar_Wexler.
Kids should not be hosting that kind of contest.
Well, I'm sure she has supervision.
Some supervision.
So there's that. And just a quick prediction that I think Ethan is really the one who killed his wife.
Oh, I like that.
I love that. I love that theory.
I like that theory a lot.
Oh, I love when I can get Matt that excited.
Oh, no. I love the idea that Ethan is a bad guy.
Yeah.
I love it.
There we go. Thank you, Roy.
We need some serious WTF factor, and not just in Tatiana on Felix kissing.
If I may possibly blow a hole in that, though, that suddenly occurred to me. I'm sorry. Marion talked to Leaky about the fire, so it seemed like there's already been kind of a Leaky confession to it.
But that's
in
to
a
the
way.
fire. That's not to the death of his wife.
But she died in the fire.
She died in the fire, but they didn't specifically say, Leaky, when you set that fire, yup, I did set that fire. No, they were aware of the fire, and they know that there's some controversy.
That's true.
And
that's
that Rachel
true.
shouldn't know what happened, and that she would distrust Dyad if she knew what happened.
Okay.
But it did not necessarily remove the culpability of Ethan.
You are right. I take back my statement.
Yeah.
I hope it's true.
Boomtown.
Boomtown. What do you got, Matt?
Let's see. I mean, next episode is got to be our big Prolethean episode.
Penultimate.
It's our penultimate.
Penultimate.
This was our anti-penultimate
Yes,
episode.
penultimate.
If we're getting Latin
The
on it.
ultimate. If you gotta go to the bathroom before the ultimate episode, that's when
So
you
anyway,
pee.
predictions?
I think she gets them babies put up in her. I think that's gonna happen. Part of me, I'm just gonna throw this out there. I want to see a time jump between episode 9 and episode 10. I want to go from babies being put up in her to she's about to pop them babies out. I think that honestly we could do with a little time off.
I would think because of the healing powers that they have, I wonder if maybe that also
Speed up
affects
the gestation period?
maybe
But Sarah would have known that then she had a weird sped up
that's true
gestation
too.
period.
That's true too.
But I wouldn't mind, because I don't know if I want to see like a whole season of Helena pregnant. I don't know if I want to deal with
I don't
that.
wanna
Well,
see
that's
that.
why I'm like either she has a miscarriage or you skip some time so that we get that baby. We get it early.
Well, it's
See.
next episode is season 9, and then
Episode 9.
episode 9, right?
Of season 2.
Right. Thank you. And then next season we can just pick up with her.
Well,
kids, right?
I was actually going to predict that I don't think the babies are going to survive. I think that we need Helena to be unstable. It's fun seeing her kind of like hanging out, trying to, have that date the other week and everything. But I think she needs to get set off somehow. And I think the fact that what she wants mostly in this world is to have babies, to have children of her own. And I think she's going to miscarry and it's going to set her off.
If they steal her babies.
Or maybe they steal her babies too. That's a possibility too.
I want her
That would
boyfriend
set
to
her
come
off.
find
But
her.
I think she needs to get set off before the end of the season. We need to see some crazy Helena action before the season ends.
All right.
So, absolutely, Anna, where can we find you during the week?
You can follow me at Koppel for Mayor, KOPPELFORMAYOR.
Oh, great. And Will.
You can follow me at The Real Will link. You can also listen to, I host a podcast on the Westcast Network, Will Sean Podcast. It's about pop culture. Listen to it. It's funny. It's good. Listen to it.
Right. And Mr. Lieberman.
You can find me on Twitter at Matt Lieberman. That's MattLieberman. You can also find my videos for SourceFed and SourceFed Nerd on YouTube. I reviewed episode 9 of Game of Thrones today, and I had a blast doing it, so you should check that out.
That was such an awesome episode, too. And you can find me on Twitter at Nandovel, Nandovel, and you can find all 4 of us hosting various AfterBuzz shows. I know Matt and I are coming back for Defiance in a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
And there's a bunch of other shows you can catch here on AfterBuzz. But as far as Orphan Black, we're done for this week. Tune in next week, 6 p.m. Pacific time on Monday for another episode. Thank you.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.
Thank you for watching AfterBuzz TV on YouTube. For more of your favorite after shows and interviews, subscribe to our channel here, and be sure to share your opinion on the episode in the comment section below here. We'd love to see what you guys are buzzing about. Thanks again. Buzz you later.